Hey, everybody, and welcome back to the Deep Dive. You guys really threw us for a loop this time. We're diving deep into the world of long-term commitment.
Oh, yeah.
Yet, so many of you wrote in, and you want to know, uh, you know, when sticking it out is the right move and when it might be time to call it quits.
Yeah, that's a big one.
It really is, and especially when it comes to those romantic relationships.
Mm.
You sent us tons of articles, advice columns, even some personal stories. Who? Okay, let's get into it.
Okay, it's funny, because we always hear that love conquers all. That commitment means weathering any storm. But
Right.
in real life, real life is so much more complicated than the movies make it seem.
Ugh, tell me about it. All the stuff you sent over really highlights that struggle like this deep desire for a lasting connection, but also the reality that people and relationships change
Yeah.
in ways we don't always expect. So where do we even, how do we even begin to unpack this?
Well, let's start with this idea of sticking it out, because there's definitely a strong argument. There are a lot of people who believe in facing those tough times together. One article even called it going through a fire and coming out stronger on the other side.
Oh, yeah, I remember reading that. There were a few stories like that where a couple said that overcoming hardships actually brought them closer. It's almost like proof that commitment can forge a deeper bond.
Yeah.
But then again, there's also this whole web of social pressure around relationships. This
Yeah.
sense of obligation to make it work no matter what.
Right. And that makes me think, are we staying because it's truly what we want, or are we just trying to live up to somebody else's expectations?
It's true.
That's where this idea of mutual flourishing comes in. I saw that term pop up in a few of the articles you sent.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, it's this concept that a truly healthy relationship should allow both partners to grow and thrive individually, not just as a unit.
Okay, I love that. Mutual flourishing. Like you're both tending your own gardens, but also nurturing the shared space between you.
Exactly.
But how do you even know if you're in that kind of relationship? Is it just about feeling happy all the time?
Well, it's definitely not about constant bliss, let's be real. But there should be a sense of support and encouragement for each other's dreams and goals.
Yeah.
It's about celebrating each other's wins and being there for each other during the rough times, all while making space for individual growth.
So it's less about never fighting and more about how you handle those disagreements. I think one writer even described it as dancing through conflict, learning to move through those tough moments in a way that brings you closer, not pushes you apart.
Yeah, I like that. That's a great way to put it. And that's where healthy communication skills come in. Learning to truly listen to your partner, express your own needs clearly, and find compromises. Those are essential tools for any long-term commitment.
And sometimes those skills are best learned with a little outside help, right? I saw that several sources mentioned couples therapy as a really valuable resource for navigating those choppy waters.
Absolutely. Therapy can be a game changer. One article described it as a gym for your relationship. You go there to strengthen those communication muscles and build a more resilient bond. And there are so many different approaches out there, like attachment theory, which explores how our early experiences shape our relationships, or emotionally focused therapy, which focuses on building a secure emotional connection.
Wow, so many options. But it seems like the underlying message is if you're both truly committed to making things work, seeking professional guidance is a sign of strength, not weakness. Okay, so we talked about the upside of sticking it out, but of course there's another side to this.
Right.
When is leaving actually the healthier choice?
Yeah. Well, let's be clear. If you're in a relationship that's toxic or abusive, whether it's emotional, physical, or verbal, staying is not an act of commitment. It's putting yourself in danger.
Yeah.
You deserve to be safe and respected. No one should ever pressure you to stay in a situation that is harming you.
That's such an important point. It bears repeating.
Yeah.
Your safety and well-being are paramount.
Yeah.
But even outside of those extreme cases, there are times when parting ways might be the best option for both people.
Right. And one of the major red flags is incompatibility. People change over time, their values shift, their goals evolve. And sometimes two people simply grow in different directions. It's heartbreaking for sure, but sometimes recognizing that incompatibility and choosing to part ways can be an act of kindness, both for yourself and for your partner.
One source used this really powerful image, feeling stifled in a relationship, like you're constantly dimming your own light to keep the peace. If that resonates with you, it might be a sign that something's off.
Yes, and it's so crucial to distinguish between those rough patches that are just part of life. We all have them.
Hmm.
And those deeper cracks that signal something more serious.
Right.
How can we tell the difference? Well, it comes down to looking at the patterns in your relationship.
Ah, patterns. One article described it as being stuck in a dance of dysfunction.
Mhm.
Like you're always stepping on each other's toes, no matter how hard you try to get in sync.
Exactly. Are you constantly having the same arguments? Are the same needs going unmet? Are you experiencing more resentment than joy? These are all signs that it might be time to take a step back and really assess the situation.
So how do you know if you're stuck in one of these unhealthy patterns? It's easy to get caught up in the day-to-day and miss the bigger picture.
You're so right. It's easy to lose sight of the forest for the trees.
Totally.
One writer suggested keeping a journal to track those recurring themes and emotional responses, just as a way to gain some clarity.
That's interesting.
Yeah, and to see if those rough patches are becoming the norm rather than the exception.
Ooh, that's a good idea. It's like taking your emotional temperature and noticing if those negative feelings are consistently outweighing the positive ones.
Exactly, and if you are noticing those red flags, don't be afraid to seek professional help. A therapist can offer a fresh perspective and can help you identify those unhealthy patterns and work towards breaking them.
And even if things aren't necessarily bad, there's always room for growth, right? One article mentioned that even the happiest couples can benefit from a little relationship tune-up every now and then.
Absolutely. Just like we go to the doctor for regular checkups, it's important to prioritize the health of our relationships. And that can look different for everyone. Maybe it's attending a couples workshop, reading a book on communication skills, or simply carving out more quality time together.
Yeah, it's like making those small deposits into the relationship bank account so you have something to draw on when those inevitable challenges arise.
Exactly.
But what about those situations where, despite your best efforts, things just aren't working? Is there ever a point when walking away is actually the most loving choice?
You're hitting on a really important point. And the answer, as with most things in life, is nuanced. Sometimes staying in a relationship out of obligation or fear can prevent both partners from finding true happiness and fulfillment.
Yeah, it's like that saying, you can't pour from an empty cup. If you're not taking care of your own well-being, you won't be able to show up fully for your partner or for the relationship itself.
So true. And it's important to remember that ending a relationship doesn't mean you failed or that the time you shared was wasted. Every relationship teaches us valuable lessons about ourselves, about love, and about what we truly want in a partner.
Oh, I love that. It's not about winning or losing. It's about honoring your own journey and making choices that are aligned with your true self.
Yes, and sometimes that means having the courage to walk away even if it's painful. It's about recognizing that sometimes the most loving act is to release each other, to pursue your own paths.
So as we're talking about letting go, it's making me think this whole conversation has been focused on romantic relationships. But isn't commitment something we encounter in all areas of life?
You're absolutely right. We commit to our families, our friends, our communities, our work, our passions. And while the dynamics may differ, those same principles apply.
Like that idea of mutual flourishing is not just about romantic partners. We all need those relationships where we feel supported, challenged, and inspired to grow.
Exactly. And just like in romantic relationships, there are times when those other commitments might need to shift or evolve. Maybe a friendship has run its course, or you've outgrown a certain job or hobby.
It's about recognizing when it's time to close one chapter and open a new one. But how do you know when that time has come? It's easy to get comfortable in those familiar routines, even if they're not serving us anymore.
It definitely is a balancing act. One author suggested asking yourself this question: does this commitment bring more energy and joy into my life, or does it drain me? And sometimes the answer might surprise you.
That's such a powerful question. Because it goes beyond logic and practicality, it taps into that gut feeling. That inner knowing that tells us when something is no longer aligned with our true selves.
And trusting that inner voice can be really tough, especially when we're facing external pressures or expectations. But ultimately, it's about having the courage to create a life that feels authentic and fulfilling, even if it means making some difficult choices along the way.
Okay, so we've covered a lot of ground. We talked about the ups and downs of romantic relationships, the importance of mutual flourishing, the power of healthy communication, and the courage it takes to walk away when necessary. But I think it's time to bring this all together and find some actionable takeaways for our listener.
I agree. Let's move into the final stretch of our deep dive and explore what it all means for navigating those commitment crossroads.
All right, so we're in the home stretch here of our deep dive into commitment. We've explored the good, the bad, and the just plain messy. And one thing is for sure, There's no magic formula. Like, there's no easy answer for figuring this all out.
Absolutely. Not every relationship is different, whether it's with a partner, a friend, a family member, or even yourself. Each one has its own rhythm and challenges.
But I'm sensing a theme here. There's this golden thread that runs through all these different forms of commitment. It's like we're always asking, is this connection adding value? Like, to my life and to the lives of the people around me.
You've hit the nail on the head. Commitment isn't just about showing up when it's easy, it's about making that choice to invest in the relationships that really feed us. The ones that challenge us and help us become better.
And that takes work, doesn't it? It's not just warm, fuzzy feelings. It's about putting in the effort to communicate,
Yeah.
to work through those disagreements, to support each other, even when it's hard.
Yeah, it's like tending a garden. You can't just plant the seeds and walk away.
Right.
You have to water them, weed them, give them the right conditions.
And sometimes you have to know when a plant has outgrown its pot or when to, prune back the dead leaves to make room for new growth.
Exactly.
It can be tough to make that call, but it's so important for the health of the whole garden.
And that brings us back to this whole idea of staying versus letting go. When do we dig in our heels and fight for it? And when do we step aside and make space for something new?
That's the million-dollar question. Right? And I don't think there's a one-size-fits-all answer. But the stuff you sent us, they offered some clues. One author talked about paying attention to patterns and asking yourself, are these challenges bringing us closer or pushing us further apart?
That's such a good question, but it requires a lot of honesty and self-awareness. We have to look at our own part in all of this, our own role in the dance, even when it's not fun to look at.
For sure. And sometimes being that honest might mean it's time to walk away, even if there's still love there. Recognizing that sometimes letting go can be the best thing for both of you.
I read in one article, they said it's about setting each other free to become who you're meant to be.
Oh, wow.
And yeah, it can be painful in the moment, but it can open up new possibilities for growth and connection. You never know.
It's like that saying, sometimes you have to lose your way to find your path. And that path might lead to new relationships, a deeper understanding of yourself, or even back to that same person, but with a new perspective.
Exactly. That's the beauty of it all, this whole journey of commitment. It's always evolving. A dance of connecting and growing, learning and unlearning, showing up and letting go. And through all of it, we're becoming more ourselves, more connected to what truly matters.
So as we wrap up our deep dive, I want to leave you with one final thought. You are the author of your own story.
I love that.
You have the power to choose the commitments that nourish you, the relationships that support you, and the paths that lead you to a life that feels real and fulfilling.
Well said. Trust your instincts, honor your needs, and don't be afraid to rewrite your story as you go.
And on that note, we'll leave you to continue your journey. Thanks for joining us on The Deep Dive.